Okay, I am here today with David Libert, multi-instrumentalist, writer, arranger, producer, tour manager, talent management, and now author of his memoirs, Rock and Roll Ward Warrior, My Adventures with Alice, Prince, George Clinton, Living Color, The Runaways, and more. And that is the cover that you can get now on sale, and it's a good read.
Thank
So
you.
that list of extensive resume is very impressive. How did that kind of progress?
Well, I started out as a musician years ago, growing up in Paterson, New Jersey. I used to like to hang out with a few of my friends in the parking lot of a restaurant we frequented, and we would harmonize. We called it chirping in those days, and we used to listen to a lot of doo-wop groups, the Paragons, the Jesters, the Diablos, and I don't think we had any intentions of being, seriously being in the music business. Basically, we found it to be a really good way to meet girls. But after a while, we did meet some girls that way. But after a while, we started to realize, hey, you know what? We sing as well, if not better, than all of these other bands that we hear on the radio. Maybe we should take a more serious look at all of this. So I started hitting the streets of Tin Pan Alley, which is a section of New York City, not too far away from Paterson, New Jersey. And and Tin Pan Alley was a section on Broadway where there were several buildings that housed music companies, publishing companies, record companies, recording studios, production companies. And if I walked into the offices of a music publisher, I told them I was a songwriter. Record company, I was in a band. Production company, I was in a singing group. And then finally one day I walked into the offices of Bright Tunes Productions, which was a company owned by a singing group called the Tokens, who they themselves had a few very big hits. The Lion Sleeps Tonight, Tonight I Fell in Love. And they were also producers. They were producers of the Chiffons, for instance. And they offered me and the lead singer of the Happenings a job writing songs for them. And they gave us a room with a piano in it and paid us the mighty sum of $25 a week each. And that was sort of the start of the business end of the music business for us. They ended up, part of the agreement was that they would also produce the Happenings, and ended up producing See You in September, and I Got Rhythm, and a lot of other hits for us. And that was the start of it all.
Yes, and you were right out of high school with the Happenings, correct? And
Not quite. We were about 22, 23 years old.
still very
So
young.
a few years beyond high school. I had actually done a stint in the Air Force in between high school and, well, I went to Fairleigh Dickinson University for a year. And things happened and with my life, and I decided I really needed to shake things up. So I joined the Air Force, which, yeah, it did shake things up. But I only lasted in the Air Force a little less than 2 years, actually. For some reason or other, Sean, the Air Force simply didn't seem to be able to adjust to my working hours. And so we parted ways, which was a good thing, because within a year, I was in the Happenings.
That is that was one part of your resume I forgot about, is the Air Force. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's in there. It's in there. I but that was the period where I wasn't involved in music. Although when I was in the Air Force, I actually had a band that we used to play every night till 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, which is mainly the reason why the Air Force tossed me out of the Air Force. I just couldn't seem to get to work on time after being up to 3, 4, 5 o'clock every morning. And since I was working on B-52 bombers, which oftentimes had nuclear bombs in the bomb bay, they really didn't look upon my working hours too kindly, which is understandable, I suppose. So I ended up being with the Happenings for 4 years, and we were fairly successful. And a couple of these gold records you see behind me are actually
as well.
Platinum as well. Hey, Sean, let's hope I don't have to smelt them down someday, you know? And then from there, I had a few different, after I left the Happenings, I had a few different jobs. I worked for a management company, and was also managing the Happenings when I was in the band. Rather unusual circumstance, I suppose. Although I spoke to my friend JJ French the other day. He was actually managing Twisted Sister when he was in the band. So, but he's the only other guy I know that really was in a band and managing it at the same time way back then. And I decided I liked the business end. I actually like being on the other side of the microphone. And I did a few different jobs. And then I was offered the job of tour manager for Alice Cooper. And I took that job. And I remember that first night in Atlanta, Georgia. My first impression of it all was 30 or 40 crazy looking long-haired people crawling all over the gear and equipment like giant insects. Sean, I thought I made the biggest mistake of my life taking this job. And Shep Gordon, Alice Cooper's manager, said, just, pay attention, observe, you'll get the hang of it, because I didn't know what to do. There was no, text manual. There was no job description. But after a few days, he was right. I started to get the pieces started to fall into place. And I started to get the hang of it. And it turned out to be just a spectacular job, flying with one of the biggest bands in the world in our own private jet all over the world, selling out arenas and stadiums, and having the time of my life. It turned out to be having Shep Gordon as a mentor. I learned 99% of what I know about this business of music just from paying attention to what he did and how he did things, and so much so that it enabled me to have a life in the music business for decades after leaving Alice Cooper.
Well, that's an impressive mentor.
Yes. I had the
you get a better one, could you?
On the face of the earth. There's no question about that.
No.
Shep Gordon, Supermensch.
Another name, a famous name, Johnny Podell, was the one who recruited you, correct?
Yes. Johnny Podell, probably the greatest agent, certainly the greatest asker in the world. He can ask for the most outrageous, unreasonable of things and make it sound just perfectly reasonable, that if you didn't see the reasonableness of it, you were simply out of line. He was really, really good at that. So I actually learned a lot from Johnny Podell as well. So between those two guys, Johnny Podell and Shep Gordon, I learned everything that I needed to know about the music business to succeed.
Well, we're counting you on in the book about that experience. You were very, very, very busy when you got going on that tour. I mean, it was like everything had to go by you.
Yes. I learned very early on that if I was going to be Alice Cooper's tour manager, I had to be in complete control of everything, which is what Shep wanted, because uh, he didn't want to have to be on the road. He wanted the freedom to come and go as he pleased. He had far more other responsibilities other than the road, so he wanted me to assume all of the responsibility. An almost overwhelming task, but somehow or other, I thrived in that environment because, number one, I created the environment in which I was thriving. Part of my job was to create that environment and to make it run smoothly, like a well-oiled machine, and also to make it as much fun as I possibly could for everybody. And I think it was that uh, function of the job, to make it so much fun, was the reason that people were happy that I was the tour manager. And if you can make them happy that you're the tour manager, it means that they were enjoying themselves, things were running smoothly, they were having a good time. That's what a successful tour manager needs to do, especially for a huge first class tour with all the logistics involved and all the people on the road with you. It's really an important thing to do that.
And that was at a time when bands were really putting a lot of props, theatrics, and costumes. That Alice was on the forefront of that.
Yeah, he was. And there was a lot of that going on. And one of the things about the people, as crazy as everybody looked, they were really very, very professional, very proficient at their job, and took their jobs very seriously because of all the props and special effects. They wanted everything to work perfectly because they didn't want Alice to end up looking like an idiot on stage if something didn't work. And they had a lot of respect and admiration for Alice. And because of that, they did everything they possibly could to make sure that nothing ever went wrong. And rarely did something ever go wrong. I mean, they loved the guy. They didn't want to let him down, and rarely did they ever.
You loved him too, correct? Very fond of him.
Very much so. Listen, if I could pick the easiest guy to deal with on the road of all of those people, it would have to be Alice Cooper himself. I mean, if he was asked to be in the lobby at 8:22 in the morning, Alice Cooper was in the lobby at 8:22 in the morning. And whereas once or twice, I may have had to have kicked in a hotel room door to get another band member up and running and get him out the door. It was never like that with Alice, and rarely did I ever have to kick in a door. I mean, everybody was pretty cooperative. But the thing with Alice, he was a lot of fun. He was just cool to hang out with. He had a great sense of humor. He was a very good sport. There was nothing prima donna-ish about Alice. He just wanted to be one of the guys hanging out, and he was like that. He could be perfectly happy hanging out with one of the roadies as much as he would be happy hanging out with Mick Jagger. It was all the same to him. And that tells you a lot about somebody.
Yeah, it does. It certainly does. Now, on the other side of the coin, George Clinton was a little more challenging.
Yeah, he was a lot more difficult. First of all, he had a lot of props and things as well. I mean, he had a gigantic spaceship that landed on stage every night. So was that a well-oiled machine? Not really. Now, I wasn't his tour manager. I was his first his booking agent, and then later on his personal manager. But I was able to bring to the table almost immediately when I became his booking agent things that I had learned being Alice Cooper's tour manager to make his operation run a hell of a lot more smoothly than it has. So I ended up looking pretty good because I was able to apply a lot of what I had learned about traveling and logistics and all of that from the Alice Cooper organization. I was able to apply that to George's organization. So but yeah, it was a lot more difficult. I mean, George didn't even have an exact number of people in the band. It changed every week. I mean, he can meet somebody on the road, and the guy could say, hey, George, I play guitar. I know every one of your songs. And, George was fine. Why don't you travel with us? And, next thing you know, the guy's in the band for a couple of weeks until something else happens. And so you never know you never know, a George Clinton thing was simply full of surprises. But I got to tell you, the shows were spectacular. The audience reaction to a Parliament Funkadelic show was really something to behold. And I was really, as difficult as it was compared to Alice Cooper, I was very proud to be a part of all of that because it was just so good musically and just great entertainment.
Yes. I mean, he was pretty shrewd operator too, right? I mean, he managed to book his Parliament Funkadelics as Funkadelics opening for
For
Parliament.
Parliament, yeah.
And with
Yeah.
just costumes and changes. And
Yeah, he came to me one day. He says, David, I want you to book Parliament and Funkadelic as two separate acts. Funkadelic will open up for Parliament, and we'll ask the promoter for two different fees. I said, George, you can't do that. They know that it's the same band. He goes, so what? We'll come out twice. We'll change our clothes. It doesn't matter. The music is a little bit different for Funkadelic than it is for Parliament. We'll charge them a little bit less for Funkadelic than we do for Parliament since they're the opening act. And, everybody went along with it because that was the only way you were going to get Parliament Funkadelic. And he was very street slick. He really thought outside the box in a lot of different ways. When he was in the studio, he would, he produced Brides of Funkenstein, Bootsy's Rubber Band, Parlette, besides Funkadelic. And, he had figured out, the only person I knew that ever was able to accomplish this, how to get around the exclusivity of a recording contract. It's a long story, but I explained it in the book. But it left him the option of signing an endless number of recording contracts as long as he changed the name each time. For instance, he had a deal with the one label for Parliament, but there was that stipulation in the contract that he had the right to be Funkadelic on another label, and on and on and on. So when he went into the studio to record something, it would start out, he really didn't know who it was going to be for. It could be for Parliament, Funkadelic, Bernie Worrell, the Horny Horns, Brides of Frankenstein, Parlette. He had all these deals going, Bootsy. So, and then he would decide what band it was going to be the track for. But he'd send the bill to all of the record companies, and he would get paid by all of the record companies for the very same track. I think they knew what was going on, but they were all making so much money if they had a funk mob group produced by George on their label that they really didn't argue the point. And all of the stuff was recorded in United Sound, a studio in Detroit, so they got a little piece as well for sending the bill to all the companies. It was quite a scheme. And then the other scheme was, years later, his drug dealers were demanding that they be paid. He owed all these drug dealers a lot of money. So what did he do? He had them sign recording session sheets and sent the sheets to the record company accountants. And that's how he got his drug dealers paid. He had them sign session sheets as if they were musicians in a recording session. Yeah, he was pretty street slick. He loved doing shit like that.
Yeah, that part is amazing. Part of the book, the stories about him and his antics. and successes and unusual.
Yeah, yeah.
Sure. Now, you identified in the book that the most important thing in life is discovering happiness.
Yes.
And I assume that that's carried through and you're still very happy.
I'm a lucky guy, Sean. Somehow or other, with all of this going on in my life, and believe me, there were plenty of downs as well as ups. Somehow or other, either by pure dumb luck or by the grace of God, I seem to have landed on my feet all in one piece. I survived all of this. So yeah, I feel blessed. I am happy. I live in the California high desert with my girlfriend Angie and our 3 rescue dogs, and we're animal rights activists. That's how I spend a lot of my time these days, and um, it's very fulfilling. And yeah, I'm a lucky guy. I have to admit that somehow or other it all worked out amazingly.
Well, the book is selling well, correct?
It's doing very well. Yep, it is. You know, it's not this lascivious tell-all rock and roll book. Uh, yeah, there's a little bit of that in it. I mean, we're talking about rock and roll here, but that's not the point of the book. I wanted the book to be informative. I want people to get the feel of what it was like to be, you know, behind the scenes, backstage, sort of a fly on the wall with all of these famous people. I wanted it to be witty. I wanted it to be a fun read and an easy read. I wanted it to have a certain flow, and I think I was able to accomplish that because the reviews have been fabulous, and everyone tells me it's a great read, it's a fun read, and that they really enjoy reading the book. So I'm very thankful and very grateful that they feel that way.
Well, I agree myself. I enjoyed reading the book, and
Great, thank you.
there's talk about a film based on the book.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm not supposed to be talking about that, but everybody seems to know about it. Wouldn't that be something, Sean, to have this thing? You know, I thought this would be the last highlight of my life. I mean, I'm going to be 80 years old next month, although I don't look it, do I, girls?
No.
But uh, there may be another highlight coming. It looks like that. And wouldn't that be fantastic?
Yes.
So I'm supposed to be kind of closed lips about the whole thing, but everybody seems to know about it. So I really can't deny it. And let's see what happens.
Well, I hope it happens because I find a hard time finding films I like to watch anymore, and I'm sure I would be very interested in reading or viewing the film.
That would be great. Fingers crossed, knock on wood.
Do you have anything that you'd like to add to the discussion?
Well, like I say, I'm a lucky guy. I know that. And I would say for anybody who's looking for a career in the music business or a career in anything that you want to pursue, make sure it's something that will make you happy, because that was the epiphany that I had that you referred to in the book. I had come to the realization early in life that the most important thing in life is to be happy. I mean, otherwise, what's the point? And for me, it was an easy one. I knew that I wanted to be involved in music. It was a no-brainer for me. And I pursued it with vigor, and I guess I was kind of unrelenting and pursued it with a passion. And if you feel that way about something, my advice to you is to pursue that uh, endeavor, go for it, don't quit, give it everything you have, and um, to ensure that it will happen. I can't say that it will happen, but it's going to take all of that if it's going to happen at all. And and the pursuit is as exciting as getting there, being there. The getting there is as good as the being there. It's all rolled up into one great big adventure. So go for your dreams. That's my advice.
Good advice. Well, I thank you very much for joining me and having a great conversation with you.
Thank you, Sean. It's been a pleasure. It's been a lot of fun.
Froze up.
I appreciate it. Really?
Oh,
Am I moving?
yeah, you're moving now. Yeah, just for you started to
Well, I've been accused of being rather stoic from time to time. Maybe that's what it was.
oh, maybe it was
uh, but I'm very happy with the book. And listen, if anybody wants a personalized autographed copy, they can go to rockandrollwarrior.com, and my publisher will arrange for me to sign the book personally to you and get it out to you. And it's, of course, it's also available on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles, everywhere else where people buy books. So, yeah.
great. Well, like I say, I thank you, and I hope you have the rest of a good day.
Thank you. And have a great holiday, Sean. Best to you and yours. Talk soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.